Hello, my friends. This is Mark Levin. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Before we get into all the issues, and there will be some big, important issues, I want to tell you about another 40th anniversary that's going to occur. You know about the landing and walking on the moon. But tomorrow is the 40th anniversary of Chappaquiddick. And I'll be the only one to talk about it. The Examiner, Dave Gibson, Norfolk Crime Examiner, he lays out the history of this case, and it's very important to remember it. And I know Senator Kennedy is very ill. But like with Michael Jackson, it's important that you know the whole person, because these are, public people. Sometime around midnight on July 18, 1969, Kennedy drove his Oldsmobile 88 off a small bridge on Chappaquiddick Island into 8 feet of chilly water. The vehicle landed upside down. While Kennedy managed to free himself from the wreck and swim to safety, his passenger, 28-year-old Mary Jo Kopechne, was left in the car to drown. Once he reached shore, Kennedy claims to have made 7 or 8 attempts to rescue Kopechne, but could not free her. He then walked back to the cottage where he and 4 other men were partying with several young women known as the Boiler Room Girls, who had worked on Robert Kennedy's campaign. Though Ted Kennedy passed by a fire station and a private home to return to the cottage, he never stopped to ask for help for the trapped Kopechne. He returned to the party and, according to Kennedy himself, informed his cousin and a friend of the situation. The 2 men, Joseph Gargan and Paul Markham, claimed to have returned to the scene of the accident and made several unsuccessful attempts to free Kopechne. Then Kennedy's story takes an even stranger turn. After the failed rescue attempts, Kennedy claims to have jumped back into the water and made the 500-foot swim across the channel back to Edgartown. He then walked back to his hotel and spent the night. He even took the time to change clothes and pay a visit to the front desk to complain about a noisy party. No doubt Kennedy's sloppy attempt at securing an alibi. The next morning, Gargan and Markham around 8 a.m. and were supposedly shocked to discover that Kennedy never reported the accident to police. According to Kennedy's own testimony, he told them, quote, about my own thoughts and feelings as I swam across that channel, that somehow when they arrived in the morning, that they were going to say that Mary Jo was still alive, unquote. The 2 men, along with Kennedy, went back to Chappaquiddick, where Kennedy spent some time making phone calls, seeking advice from various individuals on how to proceed. Meanwhile, 2 fishermen had discovered the submerged car and notified police. At 8:45 a.m., a diver recovered the lifeless body of Mary Jo Kopechne. It was not until 10 a.m., over 9 hours after driving off of the bridge, that Kennedy went to the police station in Edgartown to report the accident. 9 hours. Kennedy then gave the following prepared statement to police, and I quote, on July 18, 1969, at approximately 11:15 p.m. at Chappaquiddick, Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, I was driving my car on Main Street on my way to get the ferry back to Edgartown. I was unfamiliar with the road and turned right onto Dyke Road instead of bearing a hard left on Main Street. After proceeding for approximately 1/2 mile on Dyke Road, I descended a hill and came upon a narrow bridge. The car went off the side of the bridge. There was 1 passenger with me, Miss Mary Jo Kopechne, a former secretary of my brother, Senator Robert Kennedy. The car turned over and sank into the water and landed with the roof resting on the bottom. I attempted to open the door and the window of the car, but have no recollection of how I got out of the car. I came to the surface and then repeatedly dove down to the car in an attempt to see if the passenger was still in the car. I was unsuccessful in the attempt. I was exhausted and in a state of shock. I recall walking back to where my friends were eating. There was a car parked in front of the cottage, and I climbed into the back seat. I then asked for someone to bring me back to Edgartown. I remember walking around for a period and then going back to my hotel room. When I fully realized what happened this morning, I immediately contacted the police. Now we know so many lies in there. And in a move which must have been rather torturous for her parents, Kennedy attended Mary Jo's funeral wearing a neck brace, which he reportedly never wore again, and looking rather pathetic. The diver who recovered Kopechne's body, John Farrar, testified at the official inquest that her body was found where the air pocket would have formed. He said, quote, "Had I received a call within 5 to 10 minutes of the accident occurring, and was able, as I was the following morning, to be at the victim's side within 25 minutes of receiving the call, in such event there is a strong possibility that she would have been alive on removal from the submerged car," unquote. A week after the incident, Kennedy pleaded guilty to leaving the scene of an accident, and he received a suspended 2-month sentence. He then went on national television to repeat his rather implausible story and to ask for the public's prayers. The ensuing scandal and questionable details given by all of those involved is now left to speculation. It was obvious to most people that Kennedy had allowed a young girl to drown in a desperate and self-serving attempt to protect his political career. The incident all but guaranteed that he would never be a serious candidate for President of the United States. And you know, he resigned from the Senate. They had a special election in which he ran, and he won. And he's won ever since. And he's very, very ill right now. And people are trying to figure out how to memorialize him. His family members are already fighting with each other, his wife and his nephew, over who will succeed him. But whenever he's talked about, when the inevitable day comes, you will not hear any discussion about Mary Jo Kopechne, who died at the age of 28, 40 years ago tomorrow. I thought you'd want to know.